Most kings built their power through war. He built his through something nobody expected. King Solomon, the man who turned a small kingdom into an empire without fighting a single major battle. No massive armies, no brutal conquests, no rivers of blood. And what he understood about power is the exact opposite of what most leaders think. Because real power doesn't come from forcing people to follow you, it comes from making them want to. The question is, how did he actually do it? So, let's set the scene. About 3,000 years ago, Solomon's father, King David, just died. David was a warrior, a legend. He built the kingdom through military might, through battles and bloodshed and brutal force. And now his son Solomon is in charge, young, untested, and everyone's watching to see if he can hold on to what his father built. Most people expected him to be weak, to lose everything David had fought for, because how do you follow a warrior king if you're not a warrior yourself? But Solomon understood something his father didn't, something that would change everything. He understood that you can conquer land with swords, but you can't keep it that way. You can force people to obey you, but they'll rebel the moment you show weakness. You can build an empire through violence, but it'll collapse the moment you're gone. Real power, lasting power, doesn't come from fear. It comes from respect. And respect isn't taken, it's earned. So Solomon did something different. Something that seemed crazy at first. He focused on wisdom instead of weapons. On diplomacy instead of war. On building prosperity instead of building armies. And it worked better than anyone expected. Here's how he did it. First lesson, he started by listening. Remember that story about Solomon and the two women fighting over a baby? Both claimed to be the mother. Both said the baby was theirs, and everyone expected Solomon to just pick one and move on. Instead, he listened, really listened, not just to their words, but to what was behind the words. And then he made his famous decision. He said, cut the baby in half, give each woman half. One woman agreed. The other screamed no, give the baby to her instead. And that's how Solomon knew who the real mother was. Because a real mother would rather lose her child than see it die. That wasn't just a clever trick. That was leadership. That was understanding human nature at a level most people never reach. And everyone who heard that story realized something. This king sees through lies. This king understands people. This king can't be fooled. That's power, real power. Not the power to force compliance, but the power to see truth when everyone else is blind. Second lesson, he built alliances instead of enemies. Most kings saw other kingdoms as threats. Solomon saw them as opportunities. He made deals. He formed partnerships. He married princesses from other nations, not just for love, but to create bonds between kingdoms. When you marry into a family, you don't go to war with them. When you have trade agreements, conflict becomes expensive for both sides. When you're connected, you're invested in each other's success. Solomon turned potential enemies into allies. And he did it not through threats, but through mutual benefit. He made it more profitable to work with him than against him. That's genius. Because you can defeat an enemy in battle, but they'll come back. They'll rebuild. They'll want revenge. But if you turn an enemy into a partner, into someone who benefits from your success, they'll protect your kingdom like it's their own. Third lesson, he made his kingdom valuable. Solomon didn't just collect gold. He built infrastructure. He built the temple, one of the most magnificent structures in the ancient world. He built palaces, roads, trading posts. He turned Jerusalem into a center of commerce and culture. People from all over the world wanted to visit, wanted to trade, wanted to see what everyone was talking about. The Queen of Sheba herself travelled months just to meet him and see his kingdom. And here's what that did. It made his kingdom too valuable to destroy. When you're the center of trade, when everyone depends on you for goods and wealth and wisdom, they don't want to see you fall. They want to see you succeed. Because your success is their success. That's strategic brilliance. He didn't make his kingdom powerful through fear. He made it powerful through value. And value is much harder to destroy than force. Fourth lesson. He invested in knowledge. Solomon wrote thousands of proverbs. He studied everything. Plants, animals, philosophy, human nature. He collected wisdom from everywhere and everyone. And he shared it. That's why people called him the wisest man in the world. Not because he knew everything, but because he never stopped learning. And because he understood that knowledge is the ultimate power. A smart leader can outthink a strong leader every time. A wise king can solve problems that a warrior king can only fight. Knowledge lets you see solutions where others only see obstacles. And Solomon knew this. He knew that wisdom was worth more than gold, that understanding was more powerful than armies. So he pursued it relentlessly. Fifth lesson. He understood timing. Solomon didn't fight wars because he didn't have to. His father already did the fighting. David conquered the enemies. Solomon inherited peace. And instead of looking for new wars to prove himself, he used that peace to build. He knew that every generation has a different role. His father's role was to fight. His role was to build. And he played his part perfectly instead of trying to be someone he wasn't. That's wisdom. Understanding what moment you're in and acting accordingly. Not forcing your way into the wrong role. Not trying to prove yourself through violence when the moment calls for construction. Now, let's talk about what this means for you. Because you're not building a kingdom in ancient Israel, but you're building something. Your career, your business, your relationships, your reputation, and the same principles apply. The same strategies that made Solomon powerful can make you effective today. First, listen more than you talk. Most people are so busy trying to prove they're smart that they never actually learn anything. They interrupt, they assume, they think they already know. But Solomon listened. He paid attention. He understood people at a deeper level because he actually heard what they were saying. And that gave him power that force never could. In your life, that means shutting up and paying attention. In meetings, in conversations, in conflicts. The person who understands the situation best usually wins. And you can't understand if you're too busy talking. Second, build allies, not enemies. Every relationship is an opportunity. You can make people competitors, or you can make them collaborators. You can fight for scraps, or you can create abundance together. Solomon chose collaboration. He made deals. He found mutual benefit. He turned potential conflicts into partnerships, and his kingdom thrived because of it. In your world, that means stop seeing everything as competition. Stop burning bridges. Stop making enemies out of people who could be allies. Find ways to win together instead of fighting over who wins alone. Third, make yourself valuable. Don't try to be powerful through force or fear or manipulation. Be powerful through value. Be so good at what you do that people want to work with you. Be so useful that losing you would hurt. Solomon made Jerusalem the center of everything. People needed his kingdom. They depended on it, and that gave him more security than any army ever could. For you, that means focus on being excellent, on solving real problems, on creating real value. The more valuable you are, the more opportunities come to you. The more people want you to succeed. The more power you actually have. Fourth, never stop learning. Solomon studied everything. He didn't think he already knew enough. He collected wisdom like other kings collected gold. Because he understood that knowledge compounds. The more you know, the more you can do. The more you understand, the better your decisions. In your life, that means stay curious. Read. Ask questions. Learn from everyone. Don't assume you've figured it all out. The moment you stop learning is the moment you start declining. Fifth, play your role. Solomon didn't try to be his father. He didn't start unnecessary wars to prove he was tough. He understood his moment and acted accordingly. He built instead of destroyed. He created instead of conquered. You need to do the same. Understand what moment you're in, what role you need to play, what the situation actually calls for. Don't force yourself into the wrong strategy just because it worked for someone else. Find your path and walk it fully. This is how Solomon built his kingdom. Not through violence, not through fear, not through force, but through wisdom, through strategy, through understanding human nature and using it to create something that lasted. His kingdom eventually fell. Nothing lasts forever, but his wisdom. That's still here, still relevant, still powerful, because principles don't change. Human nature doesn't change. And the strategies that worked 3,000 years ago still work today. You don't need an army to build power. You don't need to dominate to lead. You don't need force to create influence. You need wisdom. You need strategy. You need to understand people and situations at a level most people never reach. That's what Solomon knew. That's what made him great. And that's what's available to you if you're smart enough to learn from it. Real power isn't taken, it's built. One wise decision at a time. Watch the next one for more ancient wisdom that still works.